So you've just signed on the dotted line for a new space. An office, maybe a studio. You probably just flipped to the last page and signed, right? We all do it. But hidden in all that legal jargon is a massive difference. Are you actually getting a powerful stake in that property, or just permission to be there? Trust me, the answer changes everything.
So you look at your agreement. It says license agreement in big, bold letters right at the top. Seems straightforward enough. But what if that title is just a disguise? What if, legally speaking, you actually have a lease, which comes with a totally different set of rights and rules? Well, that's the mystery we're going to solve today.
All right, let's start with the two main characters in our story, the lease and the license. You know, on the surface, they can look pretty similar, but when you get down to the legal nuts and bolts, they are worlds apart.
Here's the fundamental difference. A lease is a big deal. It's the transfer of an actual interest in the property over to you. Think of it like being handed a set of keys that says, this is your space for a while. But a license? That's more like getting a ticket to a movie. It's just personal permission from the owner to do something on their property. So one gives you a real stake, the other just gives you access.
Now, for the first and maybe the most important rule when you're trying to figure these things out, the label can absolutely lie. Just because a document is called a license agreement, that doesn't automatically mean that's what it is in the eyes of the law. And this isn't just my opinion. Courts have made this super clear. They operate on a principle called substance over form. Basically, they couldn't care less what title you slap on the document. They're going to look past that and dig into what the agreement actually does. What was the real intention here? That's what they want to know.
So if the title doesn't really matter, then what does? How do judges actually make the call? Well, it turns out that in most cases, it all boils down to one single critical test.
Let's just cut to the chase. What is that one key ingredient, that one big question that separates a lease from a license?
And here it is, the smoking gun, the thing that decides almost every single case, exclusive possession. This concept right here is the game changer.
So what in the world does that mean? Well, exclusive possession is your right to control the space and keep everybody else out, and that includes the owner. Now, the owner might have some limited rights to pop in for, say, an inspection or some repairs, but you are the one in charge. It is the absolute hallmark of a lease. If your agreement gives you that power, chances are you've got a lease, my friend.
Okay, all this theory is great, but let's see how it actually works in the real world. Let's dig into a classic court case where an agreement's true identity had to be unmasked.
So in this case involving the American Jewish Theater, the contract they signed was very clearly labeled a license. But, and this is a big but, it gave the theater the exclusive right to use a specific space for a fixed period of 6 months. And crucially, the owner couldn't just change their mind and kick them out. You can probably see where this is going, right?
And yep, the court looked at all the evidence and said, this is a lease. But why? Because the substance of the deal screamed lease. That fixed term, combined with the fact that the owner couldn't just revoke it whenever they wanted, well, that gave the theater exclusive possession and control. That creates a landlord-tenant relationship, no matter what you call the paperwork.
Okay, so we've cracked the code. We know how to tell these two apart. But why does it matter so much? I mean, who cares? Well, the answer is, you should. Because the difference in your rights and protections is absolutely massive.
Let's just break it down. With a lease, you have an actual interest in the property. That often means you can sublet it to someone else, and getting rid of you requires a formal, sometimes lengthy legal process. A license, though, that's just a personal privilege. Usually can't transfer it, and it can be revoked way more easily, sometimes with very little warning. Plus, and this is huge, tenants with leases are often protected by things like rent control acts. Licensees, not so much. It's really the difference between having a secure foothold and just having temporary permission to stand somewhere. And the financial consequences? They can be seriously painful. Let's take one example from India's Maharashtra Rent Control Act. If you're a licensee and you don't leave when your agreement is up, you could be on the hook for damages at double the rate of your original fee. That is a massive penalty, and it just goes to show how differently the law treats these two situations.
So now that you're armed with all this inside information, how do you actually use it? How can you look at your own agreement and figure out what its true DNA is? It's actually a pretty simple 3-step process. First, completely ignore the title. We already know it's a potential red herring. Second, hunt for the core evidence. Does this agreement give you the right to control the space and keep others out? That's your exclusive possession test.
And third, look at the big picture. What was the real intention here? Was it to give you a genuine stake in the property or just temporary permission? So there you have it. We've gone over the facts, the evidence, and the legal tests. The next time you look at one of these agreements, you'll have the tools you need to see right through the label and understand what's really going on. So the question is, what will you find in yours? At the end of the day, it all comes down to this. The law cares about what's real, not just what's written on the cover. The name on the document is just the beginning. Really understanding the true nature of your agreement, whether it's a lease in disguise or a simple license, is absolutely essential to knowing your rights, your protections, and what you can and can't do with your space.